Hello, my name is Elijah Wells, and today's review is Sean Durkin's new movie, The Iron Claw. The story follows the Von Erich family, who are essentially the royal family of 80s wrestling. The movie essentially zones in at Kevin Von Erich, who is portrayed by Zac Efron, as he's trying to wiggle his way up to the top of the wrestling world, while also having his brothers, who are also entering into the game of wrestling and also being looked upon by his overbearing father, who's also emotionally and mentally distant from them, being Fritz von Erich, portrayed by Holt McCallany. Again, the movie does look into the overall mental health crisis that has affected wrestling stars back then, and even unfortunately now today, and pretty much the contemporary culture around the politics and the culture around it, and how massive the Von Erich brothers were. Even though I myself has never been that much of a fan of wrestling, like, yes, I do know a major wrestling stars that are mostly known for their acting stuff, like Dwayne The Rock Johnson, Hulk Hogan, or John Cena, or something that's definitely I do see pop up a lot, like Triple H or The Undertaker from the WWE, and of course something like Logan Paul, if anyone's kind of interested in him, and also that's popular now in Saudi Arabia. But in my opinion, this is a very interesting and very educational film at best, because, like I said, I know my dad may have watched wrestling back in his day, but this is a very introspectively interesting movie, as it does educate me into the world of wrestling and how the Von Erichs were essentially, like I said earlier, they were basically the the royal family of wrestling at this point, even though they were majorly cursed at. Like they lost their first child when child was only like 7 years old from electrocution, and how the curse essentially followed the family both before and during the heyday and after the heyday of the wrestling family. The movie, of course, also boasts some incredible performances from Zac Efron, who plays Kevin Von Erich, and Jamie Allen White, who you may know from the Disney Plus series or Hulu series, depending which part of the world you come from, The Bear, who plays Kerry Von Erich, and Harrison Dixon plays David Von Erich, who essentially the movie again mostly focuses on Kevin Von Erich by Zac Efron, who essentially takes his brother under his wrestling wings, and being part of a foundation that was started by Fritz Von Erich, the father of these children. Again, the movie does also focus a bit on Fritz as essentially the very emotionally and mentally distant father, and how he's essentially decided all that went down in that family, and how he's essentially accepted the curse as his own being, since he did change his last name Von Erich for his grandmother, which is very surprising. And also, the movie does play around with history a tidbit by removing one of the brothers, which does make sense, as the movie does clock in at around 2 hours 20 minutes, which, again, even though I enjoy the movie, I think it does make some sense, in my opinion. The movie does have some really incredible cinematography, as well as the movie does burst into life, the cinematography terms of things, particularly when it features around the family ranch and the family home where the Von Erichs pretty much live and mingle around from time to time, which, again, and also how the fight scenes, particularly in the home arena, which is in Dallas, Texas, which unfortunately has been demolished since. Again, how they shot the scenes is absolutely amazing, and doing like one take scenes and making some quick and sparse editing, which is something I do really like to see in a boxing movie, in my opinion, and well, or any movie that does have like combat sports. And also the music as well, which I think in the opening fight scenes, which goes into more rock and maybe a little bit of metal territory, and also being done by Arcade Fire member Richard Ree Perry, who I've actually got one of his albums, being the Funeral album, which is the Arcade Fire's debut album. And also it does have some really great soundtracks to beat as well, like Limelight from Rush and Don't Fear the Reaper from the Blue Oyster Cult, which, again, the latter song is basically the introduction to the arena where they did most of their matches. And there's also Limelight by Rush, which does feature on Mike Von Erich, played by Stanley Simons, who was the more musically accomplished of the entire Von Erich family, as in he wanted to start off as a musician, as a guitarist of a local rock band, but again switched to wrestling after some family tragedy and US pulling out of the 1980 Olympics held in Moscow. Again, I think how they dealt with his death was, in my opinion, probably the most tragic at best, and probably left me a little bit most heartbroken, as the historical context is he dislocated his shoulder during a combat tournament in Tel Aviv, Israel, and unfortunately ran up a major fever and fell into a coma, and unfortunately was pronounced a brain damage after the coma, and unfortunately had a really nasty bout of alcoholism and drug usage, which again this movie does deal with quite seriously and quite boldly, in my opinion, and done with great sincerity. What I liked about the movie as well is the depiction of Fritz von Erichs as a father, in my opinion. Like, he is, like I said earlier, as basically a pretty cold person, in my opinion, like very emotionally, very mentally disconnected from his sons, and also often said that the Western world essentially backstabbed him, and he started off as an American footballer, but he got backstabbed by them, and refuses to sell his own organization to the WWE, and often ranks his own sons out of favoritism, which, again, we all do if you're a parent, which is not me, we probably do the oh, I don't have my favorite children, oh, we don't do favorites. He has a ranking system for his sons, which, again, even though I don't like to take sides in it, that is probably some very toxic parenting, in my opinion. And also, the emotional turmoil in this movie is actually pretty on point, as pretty much when Zac Efron's character, being Kevin Von Erich, unfortunately has to deal with the fact that he's pretty much the last remaining of his family at this point, and he has to wrestle with Ric Flair, and particularly that he does his famous Iron Claw, and he just straight up physically assaults him without any remorse and ends up getting disqualified. Like, he just lets all of his emotions like bubble up until kind of like a Coke can, it just sprays out like a volcano, which is, again, coming from a person who I remember got a start off like the High School Musical trilogy. Like, he is already really getting a lot more of a critical clout, in my opinion, even though a lot of people never took Zac Efron seriously as an actor, but I think by now you should really do at this point, in my opinion. And also the depiction of wrestling, in my opinion, even though I don't watch wrestling matches, it does go into the brutality of the wrestling, like some blood and a lot of concussions, and a lot of like the sheer brutality, like slamming into like concrete floors, and a lot of elbowing, and definitely the choreography and the sheer weight of these matches are really enticing for me also as well. The performances of Zac Efron and Jamie Allen White and Harrison Dickinson, and particularly Holt McCallany, are absolute triumphs in this movie, as well as the movie's gorgeous and lush cinematography. The music work of something like Rush and Blue Oyster Cult, and as well as Richard Lee Perry, are absolutely brilliant in this movie, and how the movie pretty much took into the family tragedy with great sense of dignity as well, which is something that is greatly positioned in its film in its entirety, and how it does use it in a very sensitive light, in my opinion. And of course, the movie, like me, who is definitely not a wrestling fan, I pretty much got behind it completely easily. It's for everyone, regardless on your wrestling knowledge. Like, for me, as someone who kind of knew what it was, but mostly know it's from the amount of stars it produced, and or someone, if you're like a hardcore fan, then this is for you. Like, in my opinion, this is a gorgeously intimate movie about the crisis and the tragedy that bestowed upon the Von Erich family, and how the curse pretty much had a ripple effect around Kevin Von Erich and the people around him. So I'm feeling an 8 out of 10 on this one. So, what do you think of the Iron Claw? Let me know in the comments, like this video, subscribe to my channel, follow me on Twitter and Instagram and Letterboxd, and this is Elijah Wells, and bye.